Hello everyone. I hope you're all doing good. Children, we already covered a small concept, basic concept of the first chapter, Living World, that is about the characteristics of living, right? I hope you understood about that concept. Now the actual content of the chapter begins today, that is about the taxonomy. Okay, now when I say taxonomy, taxon means arrangement, nomy means principle. So basically it is the arrangement of principle depending on the organisms. Okay, so that is a taxonomy. Now this taxonomy includes three different points. Now the first point that you can say is identification. Now identification is a process by which your organism is recognized, that is identification. The second one is known as the nomenclature. Nomenclature means what? The naming of a particular organism, meaning giving a scientific name to a particular organism is the nomenclature. The third one that you can say is classification. Classification is the one that helps to segregate the organism depending on the similarities and the dissimilarities. Okay, that is classification. So what are the 3 points for the taxonomy? The first one is identification. The second one is nomenclature. The third one is classification. So these are the 3 points. We know the basic definition of all the three, right? Now the next one that we already studied right now, the next one that we are going to study is about the nomenclature in detail. When I talk about nomenclature, we already know it is the naming of an organism. Naming of an organism means giving a scientific name to an organism. The binomial nomenclature or the binomial system. What do you mean by binomial? Giving two names. One is generic, that involves two components, the generic name and the specific epithet, that is the genus name and the species name. Okay, that goes with the binomial nomenclature. So this was proposed by whom? Carolus Linnaeus. The name of the scientist is Carolus Linnaeus. Okay. Now he used this system of nomenclature on a large scale and proposed it to the for scientific naming of plants and animals. Now there is a book which is there is a code, that is ICBN, that is International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, which comprises the scientific name or the rules of the different plants. Now when we plants and animals, now when we have to write the scientific name of a particular plant or an animal, we have to follow certain rules. The 4 rules are: the first word indicates the genus name and the second word indicates the species name. This is the first rule. The second, it should be in Latin or italics. The word should be in Latin or italics. Third one, when handwritten, then names of the, meaning when you handwrite the names of the scientific ones, it has to be underlined. Okay, what has to be underlined? The scientific name has to be underlined, and if it is printed, it should be in italics. Fine. The fourth rule is what? The first alphabet of the genus should be in capital and the first alphabet of the species should be in small. So these are the 4 rules of the nomenclature that we have to follow. Fine. Now that when I have to give an example of the nomenclature or naming of an organism into scientific name of an organism, let's take an example of a plant and let's take an example of an animal as well. Now when I say plant, say for example mango, when I say, now mango, the scientific name for mango is what? Mangifera indica. Now when I say Mangifera indica, Mangifera is the genus name which starts with a capital letter M. Okay, while indica is the species name, it starts with a small letter I. Fine. So this has to be underlined when you are handwriting it. So this is an example of a plant, Mangifera indica for mango. Mango is a common name. Now when I talk about an animal, say for example lion. Now when I say lion, it is Panthera leo. Panthera leo is the scientific name of the common name, that is lion. Now Panthera is the genus name and Leo is the species name, where P, Panthera, would be in capital, L, Leo, would be in small. Clear enough? So this is an example that I can give. This was about all nomenclature. Now when I talk about classification, now classification is categorized again into 3. Now classification, like what you can say, artificial classification, you can give it a name of natural classification, you can give it a name of practical classification. So there are 3 varieties. One is artificial, natural and practical. Practical classification. In this type of classification, plants are classified on the basis of their economic importance. Okay, plants are classified into basis of economic importance. Now, what example can I give here? Say, for example, the spices plants like ginger, turmeric, coriander, chili, etc. Okay, now in this classification, any one plant can be a member of more than one group, you can say. For example, turmeric, they have multiple uses. It gives both medicines and spices. The second classification that I have to say is what? Artificial classification. In this type of classification, plants are classified on the basis of one or two morphological characters, or few morphological characters that you can say. That is, overall morphology is not considered. Okay, for example, you can give classification proposed by the Linnaeus is artificial classification, right? Next is the natural classification. Now, natural classification, here the plants are classified on the basis of their complete or gross morphology. In this system, the characters of whole plant are included, right? The root, the shoot, etc. Now, maximum characters are taken as basis in this classification. Okay, so natural classification also has different types that we have to know. That only the names that we can study is what? One is natural formal, one is natural phylogenetic. Okay, so these are all based on the on what the scientists have proposed. Okay. The next that we have to learn is about the taxonomic categories. Now, classification is not a single step process. It also involves hierarchy. Now, hierarchy, when I say, it is a form of classification that you can say. Now, when I talk in terms of hierarchy of an organism, it starts from species and ends till the kingdom. Now, how is the flowchart going? Now, each rank or each level is termed as a taxon, or a rank, or a category that you can say. Now, how is the hierarchy going? First, species, genus, family, order, class, phylum for animals, division for plants, and kingdom, plants or animals. Okay, this is what we learned it in 9th standard, if you remember, right? For in diversity in living organism. So let's go it in detail about all. The first one that when we talk about is the species. Now, species is a taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. Now, one should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on distinct morphological differences. Now, here you can take an example of Mangifera indica. You remember this? This is the scientific name for what? Yes, mango. Can easily be identified from any other species on the basis of morphological differences only. And genus, the second one that when we talk about is genus. The genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison to species of other genera. Okay, here you can take an example, like now what we can say here, we can say that genera are aggregates of closely related species. Right, this is what we can say about the genus. Now, here what example can you say? If I have to say potato and brinjal are of two different species, but they belong to genus that is known as Solanum. What is it known as? Solanum. Okay, in the same way, when I take an example of an animal, Panthera leo is for lion, Panthera tigris is for tiger. They all have common features, but the genus is same, right? The next is what? The family. The family has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. Now, families are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features of plant species. Yes or no? They have two categories. One is vegetative and one is reproductive features of plant species. Now, when you say, for example, the genus like Solanum, Petunia and Datura, these are different names of the genus. Now, these all belong to one family which is placed in which family? Solanaceae. Okay, this is one family, that is Solanaceae. Now, when I talk about genus of cats, that is Felis, or the genus of Panthera, now these are all belonging to one family that is known as Felidae, that is a cat family that you can see. Okay, now when I talk about the next category or the next what do you say, rank or the taxon, that is order. Now, order is a higher category. It is the assemblage of related families which exhibit a few similar character. Now, for example, that you can say is Convolvulaceae and Solanaceae are related to and included in the order which is known as Polymoniales and are mainly characterized by floral characters. Okay. Now, the next one is the class. A class includes organisms of related orders having less similarities than orders. Here you can take an example of, say, like Saphendales and Polymonials are related. So they are included in one class, that is dicotyledon. Okay, these are the the words that I said, polymonials and the Saphendales. These are what the related order that you can say, which is placed in one class, that is dicot. Okay, now when I talk about the division, now division includes all organisms belonging to different classes having a few common characters. Now division is given for whom? It is given for only plants, and phylum is given for animals. Yes or no? Now in phylum, if I have to take an example, we can give common features like the notochord and the dorsal neural system. Say for example, chordata is one of the phylum which has fishes, amphibians, reptiles, which have different classes in them. Yes or no? Fishes, amphibians, reptiles, these are all placed in one phylum, that is chordata. Now fishes, amphibians, when I say these are what? These are the classes, right? Now when I talk about the next category, that is kingdom. Now kingdom has two, that is what? One is animal and one is plant. The plantae comprises of all plants, while the animals belonging to all phyla assigned to the kingdom Animalia. Okay. So I hope you understood the concept of taxonomic categories, the taxonomy, the classification and the nomenclature. The last part of the chapter, that is taxonomical aids. Taxonomical aids, when I talk about, what do you mean by a taxonomical aid? Now, whenever we have to study the previous plants or animals, or we have to study the present as well. Now, it is not possible every time to go there and study the living organisms. What has to be done? The biologists have involved a procedure to store or to preserve these specimens of plants and animals. So, these are known as a taxonomical aid. Now, these can be in terms of herbarium, second museum, then you can say zoological park, you can say botanical park as well, then zoological garden or botanical park, then you can give an example of a key. These are all the taxonomical aid which preserves the animal and the plant specimens. Okay, the first one when I talk about is the herbarium. The herbarium is a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dried, pressed and preserved on sheets. It is used for the future use, but obviously it is used for the future use. Why? Because we have to study from that, every generation has to study about this specimen. Yes or no? About the plant specimen. So when I say herb, obviously it is related to the plant only. Now this sheet carry a label providing information about the date and the place of collection. English and the local and botanical names have been mentioned, the family has been mentioned, and even the collector's name has been mentioned. Now when I say collector's name, the one who has collected that particular specimen of the plant, that name is also mentioned. Okay, this is about the herbarium. The second one is the botanical garden. It is a collection of the living plants for reference. Now each plant is labeled indicating its botanical and scientific name and family. That we have already gone through. We have also, some of us have also visited some botanical gardens. There you might have seen if there are different rose plants. We all don't know the scientific names of that plant. So there only they have labeled it and kept. This is a particular family or the species, the genus name of that particular plant. Right? The third one that we have to talk about is the museum. Now, biological museums are set up in educational institutes such as schools and colleges as well. Now, collection of plant and animal specimen for study and reference. This is a correct medium, meaning museum is a correct source for that. Now, preserved, it is these specimens which are there, it is preserved in containers and jars so that that specimen doesn't get spoiled enough. There is a solution which has been kept in that particular specimen so that it looks fresh and you can study the different characteristics of that particular organism, a plant or an animal. It also have collections of skeletons of animals too. Now the fourth one when I talk about is a zoological park. It is a place where wild animals are kept in protected environment. Now it enables us to learn about their food habits and behavior as well. This is a zoological park. Many of us has visited. We know about it as well. Now whenever you go in the zoological park as well, when you are surrounded, you surround to the animal, animal, what happens is outside the cage there is a board written. In that board you have a scientific name and the characteristic of that particular organism that you can study from this, right? And the last one is the key. It is the identification of plants and animals based on similarities and the dissimilarities. It is the acceptance on one and the rejection of the other. So this is about the key that I can say. Okay. Now you can also say about the key is what the keys are based on the contrasting characters, generally in pair, that you can say it as couplet. Okay, so keys are analytical in nature, that you can say. Fine. So this was all about the taxonomical aid. Children, out of 22 chapters, this one is the smallest chapter that we have completed in 2 video lectures. We have completed very early, though it was explained to you in detail. Kindly go through it properly. Thank you so much.